deep dive into deadlifts. I am going to go through everything you need to know about deadlifts, how to warm up, what type of deadlifts, how to get started, everything. And I want to start by saying thank you for starting this video, and just hopefully you go through all the way in. And if you still have any questions about deadlifts, put them in the comments or reach out to me through my email. First, I want to cover why should we do deadlifts. At the core of a deadlift, it's a hip hinge. And we want to train and get strong with a hip hinge. And you might be wondering, what is a hip hinge? Hip hinge is when you are moving through the hip joint here, and a deadlift at the core is moving through the hip joint. Why is that important? Well, if you are like any human, you move through the hip to pick stuff off the ground. Whether we drop our keys or wallets, if you have kids, we're picking up our kids. In some form, we are always doing some type of hip hinge. We want to make sure that we're getting strong with that. Part of my goal as a trainer is to train people to not just to get stronger, but it's also to move better, and not just to move better in the now, but I want you to be stronger in moving better as we age. I make this joke with my clients all the time, but when I am 60, 70, 80 plus years old, I want to be able to go down and sit on the toilet without assistance. I want to be able to live without assistance when I'm that age. And part of that is being strong. Part of that is being able to deadlift. Common question is, well, isn't a deadlift bad for the back? Well, I will say what's bad for the back is being weak. Being weak is dangerous. Think of the older population, and they're 60, 70 plus years old, who do not do any type of strength training. When they fall, they are at a high, very high risk of, one, getting injured, breaking a bone. And those who break a bone when they fall, within the year, they also have a very high risk of dying within that year. So being weak is dangerous. Strength training, especially deadlifts, is not just going to make you stronger. It's going to build your bone mass, which is very important as we age, especially you ladies. If you are in any type of an athlete, whether you're a professional, amateur, or you like to go out on the court every other weekend, it's going to benefit you there as well, because it's going to help you jump, it's going to help you run, it's just going to help you perform better as well. Now, before we get into the deadlifts, I like to go through a warm-up, and I want to take you through a really quick warm-up. Doesn't have to be very long, and I'm just going to give you cliff notes of this warm-up. But what you're going to do is we start with foam roller. Get yourself a foam roller. And I also like a ball. Get a lacrosse ball or something for the feet. And we're going to take 30 seconds total for the feet. So you're just going to get barefoot here, roll across the barefoot here, and then switch sides. All right. Now for your big foam roller, take a minute, and we're going to foam roll the glutes right here. So you're going to take a seat, prop the side of the glute that you're working on with that leg on top of the other, lean back, and we're just going to take 30 seconds to foam roll one side, and then take 30 seconds to foam roll the other. Now we want to mobilize. So now since we're doing deadlifts, we want to make sure we're doing something for the inner thighs and our hamstrings, but we also want to incorporate something for the upper body just to get your biggest bang for your buck of mobility. So we're going to do an adductor sit back with thoracic rotations. So what you're going to start on all fours, bring one foot straight out to the side. You want your foot in line with that knee on the ground here. You're going to slightly put your hands up in front of you. We're going to sit back onto your back heel. And then the side that we are, with our leg is straight, we're going to have our arm reach across the body. Long exhale. And then we're going to reach up. Exhale. So we're inhaling as we're rotating. Exhale at the end, stretch. The whole time I'm sitting back here, this is stretching. If you want to get a little bit more activity out of this, you can pull
So drive your foot into the ground and then actively try and pull into the knee as we're rotating in, rotating out.
5 reps on each side. Third part of the warm-up, we're just going to do some activation drills here. So we're going to do a glute bridge and a band pull part. So get yourself a light band, create some tension, and then as I glute bridge up, I'm going to pull the band apart and then come back down. So really drive the hips up, squeeze the glutes, and then drive into the ground. And we're going to go high reps with these, about 15 reps. Now we want to do something for the core, not to fatigue. We're just doing just enough where we get the core muscles, blood flow, the nervous system activated. That way, when we go into the deadlifts, the core is nice and warmed up. I like doing band-resistant dead bugs. So, band-resistant dead bugs, you're going to get a little thick band here, and you're going to get your hands inside the band. We're going to pull until our arms are straight, and then we're going to pull that band apart. Now this gets your lats engaged, which is very important as we go into our deadlifts because we want to be able to get not just the core, but our lats engaged. And this is a great way to warm up those lats, get that tightness before we deadlift so we are nice and warm to lift as heavy as we can. So pull that band up, pull apart, push your back in the ground, knees 90 degrees, and then we're going to go one leg straight out, exhale, bring it in, next leg, exhale, and we're just going back and forth. We're going to go 10 on each side and get nothing to fatigue, just 10 each side, 20 reps total, one set. Last part of the warm-up, we want to do the movement or similar in style, and we want to make it quick. We want to excite our nervous system. So kettlebell swings is a perfect exercise to warm up the hips, get explosive, get moving quickly, and it's going to get our nervous system fired up before we go to the deadlifts. So think of your nervous system like a light switch dial. All right, it's not an on and off switch. Our nervous system is always firing, but during the day when you're doing very little activity, the nervous system is working lightly. But if we want to lift heavy, we need to tell our nervous system to fire on all points. So we do that by ramping up and getting explosive. All right. So instead of making the light switch dim throughout the day, we want to brighten and brighten and brighten that nervous system, that light, before we go into the deadlifts. Kettlebell swings is a great way. So we're going to do power, explosive, so from a dead stop. So what that looks like is I'm going to grab a relatively heavy kettlebell, get tight, and I'm going to explode, come to the ground, explode each time. So each rep, I'm trying to get it up and explode as quickly as I can. We're doing 5 reps. We're actually going to do 2 sets of this and then go right into our deadlifts. All right, now for the deadlifts. How to get started. If you never deadlifted ever before, here's what we're going to do. You're going to get a stick. Broomstick, PVC pipe, whatever you can find that's relatively long, super light, skinny. All right, we're going to practice the hip hinge. So you're going to put this stick on your back, touching your head between the shoulder blades and your low back butt region. Okay, stick to those points at all times. Then you're going to place your feet hip width apart, toes straight ahead, and we're going to push the butt back, little bend in the knee, going as deep as you can without letting those 3 points move from the stick. I like using the stick because it allows us to know when our spine is moving. So if I start bending, but my low back starts bending, I lost my point of contact right there, so I have to re-engage and try again. One of the issues with this is a lot of people want to put a lot of weight into their toes while doing this. And that keeps you from pushing your butt back. So get into front of a wall to help you. So put the stick on those 3 points of contact: head, shoulders, low back, and butt. Stand slightly in front of the wall, and then you're going to push your butt back to the wall. Oh, I hit the wall. Great, but I can go deeper. So I'm going to slightly step forward and go again. And I'm going to keep doing this until I can't touch the wall, which right here is perfect. And that allows me to shift my weight back to the hips, to the butt here, versus out in front onto my toes. So that's the hip hinge. You're going to do that 10, 15, 20 reps. Include it into your warm-up if you need to practice that movement. The next stage of learning how to deadlift. It's not with the barbell, and it's not with the trap bar. We're actually going to do it with the kettlebell. All right, super easy, and it's low risk, and it's less intimidating to start with a kettlebell versus these big pieces of equipment. Okay, so what I want you to do is you're going to pick a relatively medium-sized kettlebell for you. We're going to stand right on top of the kettlebell. All right, so the handle is slightly in front of my shins. My feet is going to be straight ahead at hip width distance apart. Now we're going to do the same thing that we just did with the stick, the hip hinge. So we're going to push your butt back, and then notice that I can't reach this. So this requires some bending of the knees, but we're not starting with the knee bend. If we started with the knee bend, it looks like this. It looks like a squat. Instead, it's move the hips, all right, and then finish with the knee bend to get into that position here. Now let's talk about tension. All right, so what I don't want you to do is just go right into it and then lift up. That's what we don't want to do. We want to create full body tension from our toes all the way up to our shoulders. When we're deadlifting, I actually prefer bare feet. Take the shoes off so you can feel what the feet are doing, but also typically your shoes will move your center of mass forward, which makes it harder to engage the hips. It's harder to engage the hamstrings, and it's harder to engage the core. So we want to take the shoes off. If you're in a public gym, keep your socks on. If you have to, go get barefoot or minimalist type shoes so you can wear in a commercial gym. But let's start with a bottom up approach on creating tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread out the fingers, my fingers. I'm going to spread out the toes, and then I'm going to corkscrew my feet outward. My feet's not going to move, but by trying to screw my feet into the ground, I'm creating tension in the hip automatically, which helps keep my knees in line as well. So it keeps my knees from caving in. So corkscrew outward. And then for my core, let's get on the side view here. With my core, we don't want a super big arch. We also don't want rounding. So we want to go in the middle. So arch, round, medium. Find that middle ground. Push those ribs down, very similar to what we did in the core exercise with the banded dead bugs. The ribs were pushed down, my back was flat, and I'm nice and tight here. That's what we want. Hold that tightness. So we're holding all that tightness from the toes all over the core, shoulders, upper back. That's also very important on maintaining tightness, okay? Think of it this way. Think of your head as the head of a train. As the train starts to move, the rest of the carts follow along. Same thing with our head. If our head and upper neck starts to round, then the rest of our back wants to round. And we want to maintain neutrality tightness with our deadlifts, especially in the beginning as we were learning. So, how do we maintain that tightness? I like oranges in the armpits. Okay? I tell my clients, make some orange juice when they start losing tension. Now, what do I mean by make some orange juice? Imagine oranges in the armpit. You want to crush the oranges and hold that tightness the whole time. All right? So, let's recap. Toes, spread out, corkscrew, core, orange juice. Hold that tightness as you push your butt back. Bend the knees until you grab the kettlebell. And then as I hold on the kettlebell, I'm going to create more tension by breaking the handle in half, creating even more tension into my upper body. And from here, I'm creating so much tightness, the kettlebell wants to hover. So this is a good time to lift. But when we're lifting, I don't want you to think of pulling. I want you to think of pushing with your legs to stand tall. And then we're going to go all the way back down. So that's the kettlebell deadlift. Let's say you don't have the mobility like I do to get all the way down here without compromising yourself, without shrimping up. This is what I call when your back is rounding like this. You look like a shrimp. We don't want to shrimp when we're deadlifting. So you elevate the kettlebell. Have yoga blocks. Yoga blocks is a great way to elevate the kettlebell. So now it's a little bit higher, so I don't have to reach as far with my knees, and if I'm lacking mobility in my hips, I don't have to go as deep. So this is a great way to get started with your deadlifts if you lack mobility as well. So same thing, create that tightness, use my legs to get to push into the ground, stand tall, and then come back down. Notice how I lift up. I'm not pushing my hips as far forward as I can. And that loses tension in your core. You're arching your low back and you're creating a lot of tension in that low back by pushing your hips forward. No, we want to go just enough where we can stand tall. I can clench the butt and I'm just nice and tall in the top position. When I lower, same thing as we did with the hip hinge. Start with the butt, pushing back, lowering down. I'm aiming back in my starting position towards the back of my foam roller here. That's the kettlebell deadlift. And you get stronger with that. Depending on your gym, you might have heavier kettlebells. Great. Keep progressing with that until you feel comfortable jumping to the next tools. Speaking of next tools, next is the barbell. The barbell deadlift. There's 3 different foot stances, positions that we can choose to do with the deadlift. We got conventional, we got hybrid, and we got sumo. Now, the barbell will change just a little bit compared to the kettlebell because the barbell is going to be forward in front of us versus the kettlebell we were right on top of. So we have to pay a little more closer attention on our form and leaning. We can actually use the barbell to our advantage of shifting our weight back into our hips more because the weight is out in front of us. So let's start with conventional. We're going to step forward to the barbell. We want the bar over the midfoot. If you're wearing shoes, it would be over the shoelace. So it's relatively close to our shins. We don't want to be too far apart because then we don't want our low back having to work harder to remain neutral. All right? The closer the bar is to us, the better it is to be in for our backs, and not just for our backs, but the better it is for us to push heavier. So conventional, we're going to start with our feet. Again, toes straight, hip width apart. We're creating the same bottom up attention. So we are going to Splay out the toes, corkscrew out, fix the core, make some orange juice. And then from here, I'm going to push my butt back, keep my hands by my legs here, there, and then we're going to grab the bar. Now we're not going to immediately lift up. I want you to pay attention to this sound here. You can hear the metal clinking, right? You can hear that metal noise. That's called slack in the bar. We want to take that slack out before we even try pushing the weight back up. So here's how I do it. All right, create that tension, lower it down, and then what I'm going to do is break the bar in half, and then I'm going to shift my weight back. You can hear that clink. All right, and now I'm creating so much tension. From here, I'm going to stand tall by pushing my feet to the ground. All right, you can also think of pushing the ground away from you, however you want to imagine it. We are pushing with our legs to stand tall. And then lowering back down, lower the weight back down in the same fashion. One of the common problems for the deadlift especially conventional, is you see rising of the hips and then pushing. Not an issue when the weight's light, but as you get stronger and the weight get heavier and heavier, you're making your back work harder and harder. We want a nice sequence, right? Nice flow of straightening the legs and pushing our hips, okay? Pay attention to what the chest position is doing, okay? Here's what I mean. For those who raise the hips up first and then pushes, watch what happens to my chest. Did you see that? You saw that my hip was either parallel or higher than my chest. What we want is our chest higher than our hip at all times. And as I'm pushing up, it's a nice sequence. It flows really well. You might not see it. Is as I'm pushing up, I'm pushing my butt forward. So think of a hip thrust. So I'm pushing with my legs and I'm thrusting with my hips at the same time. This is a skill. It takes practice. You might not get it the very first time, or the second, or the third. But if you practice and practice and practice, you're going to get better and better and better. And it's become second nature. You don't even have to think about it. But in the beginning, it requires thinking. That's why this is a skill. All right? I don't want you to go into this and try and lift as heavy as you can immediately. Pick lightweight and practice the skill of it to the point where you don't have to think about it. That's a lot of steps I gave you. It's a lot to think about. What's the feet doing? What's the hips? All right, what's my core? And then I'm squeezing the oranges, okay? And now I'm having to move my hips back down, okay? And then I have to think about the slack. Then I have to think about where my chest is. Now I have to think about pushing with my legs and pushing with my butt, and then lowering back down, same fashion. That's a lot to think about. So don't get discouraged about how much weight you're doing. All right? Stick with the lightweight. Practice the skill. The weight on the bar is going to come. It'll come with it. You'll get stronger by practicing the skill. All right? Form will outbeat what your ego is telling you every single time. And this is also how we stay safe when we are lifting. All right, rant over. That's the conventional. Next is the hybrid. A hybrid is anywhere between a full sumo and conventional. So, we'll start with our conventional steps here. If the bar will stop moving. and hybrid. That's just like a little half step. All right. So it's just a half step out from your conventional step. I like my toes either straight or slightly pointed out about 10 degrees. Play around with it. Find what fits best for you. Now, for this, our hand position is not going to change. It's just going to look different because it's inside of our legs now instead of outside. But we're doing the exact same movement. So I'm creating that tension core, create some orange juice, push the butt back, lower down with the knees, and then from here, lean into the hips, take the slack out of the bar, and then push to stand tall, and then lower back down. Now you might notice that my chest is going to be a little bit higher than my hip compared to the conventional. That's okay. So why hybrid? Why hybrid versus conventional? Well, it could be mobility. Maybe you lack proper mobility to get into a conventional without shrimping up. It could also just be how it feels for you, how it moves for you. My recommendation is to try all these variations. Pick the one that you like the most to get the strongest. But throughout the year, cycle in all the variations to get all the benefits of it. Because hybrid is going to challenge our muscles just a little bit differently than conventional. Okay? With hybrid, you might get a little bit more side butt and a little bit more quad than the conventional. Okay? Now, this leads to sumo. Now, sumo is a wide stance. It's going to be much wider than your conventional. It's going to be a much wider stance than the hybrid. But same thing. We want the bar over the midfoot, close to the body. Okay? And our hands are going to stay in the same position. So you're going to stay tight, create the orange juice, push the butt back, and then we're going to bend a little bit knee bend. So the difference with the sumo is now I'm really challenging the inner parts of the leg and the groin issue here. I also have to pay closer attention to what the knees are doing. The knees are going to want to cave in. I have to pay closer attention to creating that torque with my toes, with my feet, to keep the knees aligned over my toes or in line with my toes as I'm going through this exercise. So create the slack and then push. Now with the sumo, you're getting more quad and more side glutes compared to the hybrid and even bigger versus the conventional. And then also, as I mentioned, you're getting more of your groin, your adductors right there working. Is one better than the other? No. Like I said, it's all preference. It's all based on your body type and how it moves for you and how it feels for you. Now, one of the questions that was brought up in one of the Q&As that I'm going to do is the grip. You probably noticed that I did an overhand grip with each variation that I showed you. You can also do a mixed grip with this. All right? This is going to be stronger than double overhand. Why? Because the bar's not going to want to slip out as easily. Okay? But with a mixed grip, you do run a higher risk of something happening with the bicep. Especially as you get stronger and stronger, you're putting a lot of load into that bicep here as you're pulling the weight up. So if you were to do a mixed grip, I would every set switch. As long as you are even with your sets, right? 4, 6 sets. But you're running a risk with mixed grip. Alternatively, You can do something called a hook grip, is where you are double overhand, but you tuck the thumb under the bar and hold the bar and your thumb, and that's called a hook grip. I will say it's painful until you get used to it. I will also say with us, with small hands, hook grip doesn't work. All right, I have small hands, small fingers, so I can barely put these fingers over my thumb and bar, barely. So I'm actually weaker with it, and like I said, it hurts. It hurts the thumb. So forewarning there. If you're small-handed like me, don't worry about it. Just try and get as strong as you can, double over, or mixed grip on the heaviest set. That's an alternative way to do it as well. Is you can do overhand until you get to a point where the weight can't be in your hands in that double overhand grip. That's when you can mix grip. So that is the deadlifts with the barbell. Next is the trap bar. So this is called a trap bar. Another name for it is called a hex bar because it has 6 sides. I like trap bar more than hex bar, but preference. Now, you can see that we are inside the weight here. So this is going to be very similar to the kettlebell because the weight is no longer in front of us. We are inside the weight. You'll also notice that the handles are on the side. And I will say, you will have the strongest grip with a neutral grip using the trap bar. You'll see that there is, for this trap bar at least, not all of them are like this, but most of them, there's 2 handles. You got this handle right here where it's raised up. This is very beneficial for those who need, who lack a little bit of mobility, who has some low back issues, and it just feels the best. And if you want to go deeper into your deadlift, you can use the lower handles. Generally speaking, I like using the high handle bar for our deadlifts. Now, the setup for the trap bar deadlift is the same as the barbell and the same as the kettlebell. Now, for your feet position, I will say, play with it. You can have a narrow stance, or you can have a slightly wider stance, and this is based on how it moves and feels for you, and this will take some trial and error. For myself, I like hip width apart with my toes straight ahead. And then from here, the same approach of creating tension from our toes all the way up to our shoulders. So I'm going to corkscrew, fix the core, create some orange juice. Then I'm going to hinge my hips, lower down. Now you can see that with a trap bar, with the high handle bar, it's going to be a little mix of a hinge and a squat, and my chest is definitely higher than the hip here with this for this variation. But the same thing applies. Take the slack out of the bar. See that slack? So I'm going to push into the bar to get that slack out, lean into the hips, and then I'm going to push until I'm standing tall. Again, with the neutral grip, you're going to have a stronger grip than the barbell. Common mistakes with the trap bar, because we are center of mass, the weight, it is easier for you to let that weight come out in front of you as you're lifting or having some swinging. So putting more focus into the oranges, creating some orange juice, create that tightness. You have to put a little more focus on that all the way up and all the way down. With the barbell, it's easier. You just pull into you and creating that tightness. There is that caveat with the trap bar. So I'm going to say something that is may be controversial, especially for powerlifters. Powerlifters do not like it when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If your goal is just to be stronger, to live better, to move and feel better, and try and do this as long as you can, up until you're 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, I will say skip the barbell deadlifts as your primary deadlift variation and stick with the trap bar. The trap bar, like I said, a little less load in the low back, so you're able to not have to worry about your low back when you're deadlifting. You have a neutral grip, and that's going to be stronger and less risk of any type of bicep issues versus the barbell when you're doing mixed grip. And it moves and feels better, and you can be more athletic with your deadlifts with the trap bar versus the barbell. What do I mean by athletic? I mean you can do trap bar deadlift jumps. That's pretty athletic. You can go sprinter stance. A sprinter stance is when you have one foot in the front and your back foot kickstand on the balls of your feet like this. So like a sprinter stance. It's easier to do that with a trap bar versus a barbell. It just feels better, generally speaking. Not to say you can never do a barbell. I'm not saying that. Throughout the year, it's good to cycle through all the variations. But if you're going to stick with one variation the most, I will say the trap bar is your best bet, especially if you want to do this for as long as possible. When I train my clients, it's with a trap bar. And guess what? They don't care because they are seeing results with the trap bar. They're not going to be power lifters. So why do they have to train with the barbell? They don't. Now, I will cycle in the barbell just to mix it up and to train a little bit differently, but our main focus is with the trap bar. And you can disagree with me. That's okay. I'm not telling you you have to. I'm just telling you what I recommend. Now let's answer some questions. Thoughts to keep upper back engaged so you don't round or slouch. Now I kind of answered this already throughout this whole video here on how to create tightness in the upper back. How to not slouch or round as you're coming up. Another way that I said earlier is do not be a shrimp. There is a little caveat with your upper back. Let me show you. I said that you want to create as much tension and neutrality in the upper back as you're going all the way down and all the way up. You will see power lifters have a upper back roundness as they're going through their deadlift. Now, what is the power lifter's goal? Their goal is to lift as heavy as they can with the shortest range of motion. So by having that upper back roundness and tightening that, they are lessening their range of motion as they are going through their deadlift. We're not power lifters. I want you to create as much range of motion as you can because that's going to be the best for our joints, getting our joints stronger at in range of motion. That's why with the trap bar, I like doing both the high handle and the low handle so I can change the range of motion for my deadlifts. And with the upper back roundness when you're deadlifting, you have to be super aware of what the body's doing so the rest of your spine doesn't round with it. Like I said in the very beginning of this video, your head is the head of the train, and as the head turns, the rest of the carts turn. All right? This is one of those examples where for power lifters, you have to first learn the rules to break the rules. And generally speaking, I'm going to recommend not rounding your upper back when you're deadlifting. Because we're not power lifters, and we're not wanting to feed the ego just so we can lift heavier. Question number 2 is, what is no touching the floor? No rest at the bottom. That's a great question. You'll see people doing a deadlift variation where they don't touch the floor. This is called an RDL. RDL meaning Romanian deadlift. That's when you are hinging at the hip. So this is going to be a more pure hinge motion, less bending in the knee, and we're not touching the floor. This puts more demands on the hamstrings and glutes as we're doing this exercise. A deadlift is you are lifting the weight off the floor from a dead position all the way up, all the way down. So RDL, you don't touch the floor. Deadlift, you go all the way to the floor and then come back up. And this kind of goes into, well, when you are deadlifting, do you do a tap and go? So a tap and go is tap and go, or do you go all the way to the floor and then push back off? I will say, it depends. Depends on the goal. And there's good reasons to do both. A more touch and go form of repping out will keep the tension in your muscles, which is really going to be beneficial if your goal is to build muscle. If your goal is more strength-based, I will say it's better to come all over the floor, create tension, and then go again. I'll say both is not wrong. Both is, you can just pick and choose which one feels best for you. I will say it is harder to come to a complete dead stop and rep it out each time because you have to recreate the tension to lift up, overcome the inertia of lifting the weight up versus the tap and go. So if you have a goal of wanting to create tension as fast as you can and then exploding up, do the dead stop and go. If your goal is to just get stronger and build muscle, tap and go is completely okay. Question number 3, how much knee bend at the start and when to start straightening the legs? I kind of answered this before, but I'll answer it again. It's a flow. We want to make sure that we are coordinating our body to move effortlessly. And in the beginning, it's going to look very segmented. It's going to look blocky. It's going to be hard. But as we practice the movement and practice the skill, it's going to look like it flows really well. So when we are deadlifting, what we don't want is straighten the legs and then pull. We also don't want a squat to lift up. All right, so we still want to hinge. So, as I said in the beginning of this video, start with the hinge of the hips, and then wherever that hinge stops, that's when we bend the knees to lower down. All right, and then as we're coming up, it's a movement of pushing with our legs and thrusting with the hips at the same time. And again, we have to coordinate that movement so it doesn't look blocky. All right, it should be done at the same time. So this works your coordination just a bit. Question number 4, how to safely deadlift while keeping intensity high? That's a phenomenal question. We don't want to get hurt when we're lifting weights, right? But there is a misconception that lifting weights increases injuries. And as I said before, being weak is more dangerous than being strong. Now there is a kind of a bell curve here. If we pull up a bell curve, we got weak being dangerous, being too strong can be dangerous. So we want to find that sweet spot of being strong enough. Now, how do we keep the intensity high? How do we keep the intensity high while keeping ourselves safe? Well, I will say leave room in the tank. For longevity purposes, I will say do a rep scheme of ramping up your weight with each set. So let's say we are doing 4 sets of deadlifts, 4 sets of 5, okay? That's a common rep scheme and sets for deadlifts. 5 reps, 4 sets. Set 1, you're gonna pick a weight that's relatively easy, right? Let's use this for example, 135. I'm gonna do 5 reps. Boom, rest. I'm gonna increase the weight for set 2. Again, nothing close to what I can maximally do. It's heavier, but not as heavy. Set 2, done, 5 reps. Set 3, increase the weight. Set 4, increase the weight. Set 5 should be the heaviest weight you can do for 5 reps, and then you're done. The last set, you want to strain the body, but we're not under fatigue. And it's under fatigue is when we start to make mistakes with our form. That's when the body wants to give out, and that's when injuries can happen. So if we are not going to fatigue while lifting heavy, we're going to make sure that we are getting stronger, building muscle, and making this last as long as we can. So that is one way of keeping the intensity high and staying safe while we're deadlifting. And question 5, pros and cons of hook grip, mixed grip, conventional and sumo stance. So I've already explained all this in the earlier video. So just go back and yeah. So I've already explained that question. Great question. I just already explained it. There you go. There is the deadlift deep dive, and I really hope that you got something out of this. If you have any more questions, please reach out, put it in the comments, or email me. The email is in the description. So please, if you have any questions, reach out. And again, thank you so much for watching.